everybody. It's an honor for me to be here today hosting two panels, actually. This one and another panel I'll be hosting on climate change a couple of hours later. But let's focus on our current subject, which is staying relevant in an ever-changing world. Now, does anybody find it difficult to try to keep up with new trends, the latest technology, and the ever so increasingly high standards of our day? Does anyone have trouble keeping up with all these timely things that we need to follow? Yeah? I find it hard as well. Now, everyone wants to be successful in the workforce, and at the same time, we want to have a social life as well. We want to balance our personal from our professional lives. And we want to do all of this while sustaining a healthy lifestyle as well. We want to not overwork our minds, bodies, and souls to the extent where we're experiencing what we call a burnout. However, looking at some statistics, I realized that our well-being isn't prioritized. I realized that when I reflected on myself, that I don't put my health at the top of the list. And I've invested so much time and energy in building my career instead of my personal well-being. So what exactly is the secret to checking off all the boxes to success while staying relevant in a world where new innovations and technologies are being developed, while most importantly sustaining a healthy lifestyle, physically, emotionally, and of course, mentally? I'll try to get those answers to those questions in just a bit after this video. All right, before I introduce our two exceptional panelists, I'd like to ask everyone that's joining us here in person and everyone that's joining us online to join in on the conversation, talk to us, tweet. You can tag us at TRT World Forum Next, and we do also have a trivia contest as well that is titled TRT Guess What, where we will be asking questions, and if you do have the answers to those questions, you can win a prize. Now, without further ado, I'd like to invite Enes Efendioğlu. He is the Deputy Director General at the Directorate General for Youth Services. He is also a public health specialist and the funding president of the Civil Life Association, recognized by the United Nations. I'd now like to welcome Ala Hamdan, who is a film director and a storyteller. She's the co-founder of At Films and has conducted projects with companies and organizations like the UN, the UNDP, and Adidas. Please sit in the green. All right. Now, the topic of this panel is the ever-changing world, how to be successful, relevant, and healthy. Being able to keep up with new trends, standards, and expectations could be very overwhelming, but at the same time, it could be a nice challenge to take on as well. What are some of the key factors to staying relevant in a day and age where we're witnessing constant change, new innovations, while being successful both financially and personally? Most importantly, in my opinion, is to staying healthy while doing all of this, taking on all these roles. Enes, let's start with you.
Thank you so much, Efnan. It's my great pleasure to be here with all these youngsters. That's a very energetic panel and salon. So I think starting out with something with the health, I think it's important to underline and mention about definition of the health. So when we say health, according to different institutions, including the WHO, the World Health Organization, we are talking about the complete state of well-being for the social, physical, and mental well-being. So when we say health, mostly we tend to understand the physical health. If you do not have pain, if we say we are healthy. But mental health is a very important component, important domain of defining the health. And especially after the pandemic, that's been a very big issue. Countries started to give a lot of attention to the mental health aspect as well. Now we see that the coronavirus numbers of cases are decreasing day by day. But it was discussed a lot this morning before this session that we have seen around 500 million cases and around 6 million deaths since the beginning of the pandemic. Of course, these are huge numbers, but I think that's also important to understand how the definition of health refers to that big numbers, because we cannot really measure the problem of health, this pandemic, only with the number of deaths. So with the public health expert, we have different type of comparison measures that we can count in. For example, we have CALIs, DALIs, so if there is any other health expert here who would understand that quality of the life, including the mental health, is a big component. The quality of the life in work life, quality of the life in the social life, these are all different important components. And I also would like to say here that COVID-19, this pandemic, because we are talking about an ever-changing world, right? And the biggest reason why the world is changing this fast, especially in this period, is, of course, is the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And with the pandemic, what came in mind to the country's managements is the inequalities. I think it would be a missing part of the puzzle if we do not mention about inequalities and disparities here. Inequalities is a big component in the health. Inequalities within a country, inequalities within a region or within the world defines the quality of the health within these groups, within the country or within the world. So before the pandemic, like all type of diseases or all type of health problems, they tend to differ within the countries or within the regions, depending on the income level, depending on the education level, depending on different components. But COVID-19, for the first time ever, had one difference, which was that it affected literally everyone. So countries that are, having like well income, providing good quality health services for their societies, they also, had hard times to answer the need of health services. And I think that's why, for the first time ever, countries in the world united and they started to think out about how we can solve this problem of inequalities. Because it starts on international level about the inequalities and it goes all the way to our work life, to our daily life, to our social life, with our friends, with our family, with our colleagues in the office, that we have to solve out. Because if we would like to increase the quality of the life, we definitely have to answer, we solve out the problem of inequalities. And I don't want to keep it so long, but I think a very important thing to mention here is, perhaps we can discuss it in the upcoming minutes as well, but I think we should also look to COVID-19 as an opportunity. Because, of course, we have seen a big number of deaths. That's very tragic and it's so bad. But, a lot of people say that all the crisis has also a winner. And this winner should be, in that case, the humanity. So all the people in the world, especially people in the low-income countries, especially the people who are having hard time to access the quality health service, they should be remembered after that time. So they should be understood how it is to not being able to access to the health services, right. And it should start up from there.
Right. I have to say, from my personal perspective, is I am so lucky to live in a country that has an immense health care system where we have access to governmental hospitals in every district of the country, and we have that access. But unfortunately, not everyone is as lucky as we're seeing countries across the globe grappling with, falling healthcare systems, and that was very evident during the pandemic. I want to cross to you now, Ala. I want to get your perspective and your take on how we can be successful in the things we do and how we can stay relevant, but also taking our health into consideration while doing all these things.
Can I do two things before that?
Of course, sure.
So the first thing is, I'm sorry I'm giving you my back. I wish I can see you all. The second thing is, I would love to give a moment of silence to Shireen Abu Aqle. We lost her 2 days ago. I think everybody knows that. Mm-hmm. So just, she was an icon for me and a lot of women who worked in media and journalism. And she impacted us even with her death, leaving a strong message to the world that even when I'm in my coffin, I'm not safe. So if we can have just a moment of silence, if you don't mind.
Sure. You know, talking about Shireen, she was an exceptional journalist. And I think whether you knew her or you didn't know her, she was a role model to many young women and men across the globe, especially in the media sector. I used to look up to her, and I used to look at her work and the way that she conveyed the messages of the Palestinian people to the world. She's done some exceptional reporting, and I'm really glad that you brought her up and we had that moment of silence for her, because she is truly a figure that won't be forgotten. She definitely will not be forgotten.
So going back to the topic, I would say, first of all, when we connecting COVID to social media, at the beginning, we didn't know where it was going. But even some of us content creators, we were a bit worried. Is this going to affect our work, our content, creating films, videos? Is it going to increase, decrease? We didn't know how people will be dealing with the film industry afterwards. We have witnessed that a lot of films were shut down or postponed. They couldn't go live. Because of that, even a lot of our documentary projects had to pause. But then we turned it into an opportunity because we were stuck at home, and then more ideas came to surface. However, a lot of people were affected. Their mental health was affected by that, because they started comparing more their lives to other people's lives and content, because everything they do is they watch each other's reels and stories. So I would say how to keep a healthy mindset and use social media. I would give 3 simple tips. The first thing would be curate your feed. So unfollow, delete or add the people that actually add value to your life, or unfollow the people that don't. Because eventually what you watch 24 hours is subconsciously registering in your mind. And 2-3 years later, suddenly you want to study abroad just because you've been seeing a lot of people doing that, not because this is your dream. Or you want to become a YouTuber. Since I'm on social media, a lot of people want just to become YouTubers. Why do you want that? Because I make money and I travel. Making money and travel cannot be your only goals to becoming a YouTuber. And another thing would be you have to nurture a healthy community and a group of friends on ground, away from social media. A lot of my friends are sitting over there, and they're sitting everywhere, but they're in front of my face. But honestly, having healthy, real relationship on ground is way more important than having 1 million followers or fans or whatever. I call them friends. I call them friends on social media.
It goes hand in hand, doesn't it? Because we've seen a lot of content creators that have, been very successful in the digital space, but then we kind of saw them deteriorate over time, because I feel like once you get into that space, you kind of forget the real world.
Exactly. They bring you back to the ground.
Right.
When you're flying too high, they bring you back to the ground. To the reality, it's like, what you said is inaccurate. We don't agree with that. Let's think differently. Because if you're on social media the whole time, you only think social media, and then you forget that a lot of people that use social media are not influencers. They're not activists.
Right.
So
this also
they bring reality to
has
your content.
a huge mental effect as well. It does really affect your mental health, because I've
100%.
seen, 100%. Because I've seen a lot of young people that, they're trying to make it on social media. They're trying to get the followers, and when they don't, they think that something's wrong with them. And Enes, I want to turn to you now, because you mentioned the pandemic, and a lot of people during the pandemic, they struggled financially. They struggled because they didn't have the social environment that they needed. They couldn't find that social environment online. So it did take a mental toll on people. And they started, a lot of people were focused on the virus itself, when we had a whole nother issue happening with suicide rates rising across the world and people second guessing or reevaluating what their purpose is in this life. Elaborate on that for us a bit and how mental health shouldn't be, it should be our top priority.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Especially for the companies, especially for the entrepreneurships ideas. Like health is now the focus and the center of everything. So we could see that. And the priorities also change throughout the time. And things were different before. And perhaps like for all of us, we are all here old enough to remember the beginning of the pandemic when we started to put the masks on. And I do remember myself that I was giving a lot of attention to different things. But even for myself, now the most important thing is the health. And it's the same for everyone, for the workplace. And just to put it together, perhaps together with what Ala said, I think it's important to look also for the opportunities here. People suffer financially, people suffered also mentally. People lacked a lot of social interaction, and that's a very big part of mental health. It's a big component that, kids grow up without even going into park, without even playing with other kids. Mm-hmm. So that's a very important thing, I do agree. But just looking to this issue only from the negative side, I think it's not a decent thing. For example, with the pandemic, we started to work remotely, and I believe the fact that the world is now accepting that people can work literally from everywhere, that's a big thing. I do remember from years ago, when I was working for WHO, for the World Health Organization, they were booking flight tickets for 10 hours, for 11 hours flights, for only 3 hours, 4 hours meeting. And it was just normal, even for WHO back then. It was not environment friendly, it was not green, and it was insane, but we were just doing that, But now, back then, when I talked about, hiring someone online through different digital platforms to do a small work, a small job for myself, from Brazil, from US, from Bangladesh, people were just telling me, really? Are you going to do that? And now, that's an opportunity for us. Everybody just accepts that. And I think the work life is also changing with the pandemic. And it's important for businesses, it's important for young people to be able to catch up with this ever-changing world so that they can benefit from the potential benefits.
It is indeed. I'm really short on time. We are having serious delays with our timing, and I'd love to sit and talk about this with you guys further. But I just want to get your last thoughts. I want to play off on what Enes just mentioned, and not looking at the negative side of things and looking at the positives. What positive effect did the pandemic have on you in, widening your success as a content creator? Because your work is absolutely outstanding.
I would say I was able to connect more with people. So what I do is storytelling. And so I was able to shift my work from just focusing on sharing and publishing to listening more and meeting more people during that time, even if it was online. And the moment that COVID kinda finished, I was able to meet with them and create stories related to them. One of the projects that I turned from to an opportunity, it's a sad one, but I did. It was domestic violence. So during COVID, it increased. More women were being abused emotionally, physically at home. So I got to read a lot about that and see women's story on social media. So I thought, why don't I turn that into a small series? And I got to meet them. And then we documented a short series called A Letter to Risala Ila, where women speak up and talk about their experience. This affected so many other women to come out and talk about this, or just for them to know that it's not acceptable to live such a life without asking for your rights. So this pain was transferred into a short, I would say, series or documentary, and then we are taking it forward to a legislation level, and it all shifted from being stuck at home during COVID. While we were just social media, someone else was beaten, and I thought this is really important that we merge our efforts to see how we can help. And I would like to thank every single person that on social media that ever supported me that ever gave me an advice, that ever criticized me, or that ever gave me a good word, because with that, I grew, whether I like it or not. With that, my content became better, and
Right.
hopefully my storytelling and messages.
Well, absolutely amazing work. Thank you so much for all your efforts. Also working towards a social cause and bringing solutions, even if they're mild solutions, to a very important issue. Enes, Efendioğlu, Hamdan, unfortunately, I'm going to have to end it here now because we've run out of time. It was a pleasure speaking to the both of you.
Thank you so much.
We will have a short 10-minute coffee break. We'll meet you guys all back here in 10 minutes' time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.